Adrian Blackwood had everything money could buy, but there was one thing his billions had never been able to give him: someone who loved him for who he truly was. At 34, Adrian was the youngest billionaire in the city, owner of Blackwood Holdings, a business empire that stretched across hotels, technology companies, luxury apartments, and private investments. His face appeared on magazine covers, business channels, and social media almost every week. Women wanted to marry him, businessmen wanted to become his partners, and strangers treated him like royalty the moment they learned his name. Yet every night, when the huge doors of his mansion closed behind him and the servants disappeared into their quarters, Adrian sat alone in a house that felt colder than an empty street. He had been engaged twice, and both relationships had ended for the same reason. The women had loved his lifestyle, his private jets, his expensive gifts, and the power that came with his surname, but they had never loved Adrian. One evening, after another dinner where a beautiful socialite spent more time asking about his cars than asking about his dreams, Adrian returned to his mansion frustrated and exhausted. His grandfather, who had raised him after his parents died, was sitting in the library waiting for him. The old man looked at him over his glasses and said, "You keep searching for someone who loves the billionaire, Adrian. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped being the billionaire?" Adrian laughed bitterly. "What am I supposed to do? Walk around pretending I have nothing?" His grandfather closed the book in his hands. "Exactly." Adrian stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. Hide your identity. Wear ordinary clothes. Live without your money for a while. If someone loves you when she believes you have nothing, then perhaps you will finally know she loves you." The idea sounded ridiculous, but that night Adrian couldn't sleep. By morning, he had made a decision. He would disappear for 30 days. His security team would secretly watch from a distance, but nobody would know where he was. His expensive suits were replaced with an old gray hoodie, worn jeans, cheap shoes, and a faded jacket. His hair was deliberately left messy, his expensive watch was removed, and his face was covered with a rough beard. His assistant arranged a tiny rented room above an old bakery in the poorest neighborhood of the city. Adrian took only a small amount of cash with him, just enough to survive if he was careful. His mansion, cars, bank accounts, and credit cards were all left behind. For the first time in his adult life, Adrian walked through the city without anyone recognizing him. At first, he found it strangely exciting. Then reality hit him. By the second day, he was hungry. By the third day, he realized that the money in his pocket was disappearing faster than he expected. He began sleeping on a thin mattress in his tiny room and spent his days looking for work. Most places rejected him because he had no references. Eventually, a construction company hired him for temporary labor. Adrian had never lifted heavy boxes or carried bags of cement in his life, and within hours his hands were covered in blisters. That evening, he sat outside a small grocery store, exhausted and embarrassed, wondering how ordinary people survived this every day. Then a young woman stopped in front of him. Her name was Emily Carter. She was 29, worked at a small bakery, and lived with her elderly mother in a modest apartment nearby. Emily was carrying 2 paper bags of groceries when she noticed Adrian sitting alone. She looked at him for a moment, then asked gently, "Are you okay?" Adrian lowered his eyes. "I'm fine." She smiled. "People who are fine usually don't look like they're trying not to cry." Adrian almost laughed. Nobody had spoken to him that way in years. He shrugged. "Just tired." Emily looked at the grocery bags in her hands and then at him. Without saying anything else, she took a sandwich from one of the bags and held it toward him. "Here." Adrian stared at it. "I can't pay you. I didn't ask you to. Why are you helping me?" Emily smiled again. "Because you're hungry." She walked away before he could respond. Adrian watched her disappear around the corner. He had received million-dollar gifts from people who wanted something in return, but that simple sandwich felt more valuable than anything he had ever owned. The next morning, Adrian saw Emily again outside the bakery. She recognized him immediately. "You're the sandwich guy." Adrian smiled. "And you're the woman who gives food to strangers." Emily laughed. "Only the ones who look like they need it." Adrian began visiting the bakery every morning. At first, he claimed it was because the coffee was cheap, but secretly he wanted to see Emily. She never asked about his past. She never asked how much money he had. In fact, she seemed completely uninterested in status. She treated everyone the same: the elderly customer who counted coins slowly, the tired delivery driver, the homeless man who came every afternoon, and Adrian. One rainy evening, Adrian found Emily standing outside the bakery struggling to carry several boxes. He rushed over and helped her. "You shouldn't be lifting all this yourself." She smiled. "And you shouldn't be carrying it either. You're exhausted." "I'm stronger than I look." "That's what everyone says before they drop something." They both laughed. That evening, they walked together through the rain. Adrian discovered that Emily loved old movies, hated expensive restaurants, dreamed of opening a small bakery with her mother, and believed that people were defined by their choices, not their possessions. Emily discovered that Adrian, whom she knew only as Adam, was quiet, thoughtful, and surprisingly funny. Over the following weeks, their friendship grew into something neither expected. Adrian began helping Emily at the bakery in the mornings and working construction during the day. He learned how to knead dough, clean tables, repair broken shelves, and even make coffee. For the first time, he enjoyed ordinary life. One afternoon, Emily found him sitting outside the bakery staring at his hands. "What's wrong?" she asked. Adrian looked at his blistered palms. "I never realized how hard people work just to survive." Emily sat beside him. "Most people don't have the luxury of realizing it late." Adrian looked at her. "Doesn't it bother you that life is so unfair?" She sighed. "Of course it does. But I can't fix the whole world. I can only decide what kind of person I want to be inside it." Her words stayed with Adrian. He began questioning everything about his old life. He had spent years believing that money could protect him from loneliness, but Emily had shown him that kindness could make a person rich without a single dollar. Then, on the 27th day of his experiment, everything changed. Emily's mother suddenly collapsed at the bakery. Emily panicked and called an ambulance, but the hospital informed her that her mother's treatment would require an expensive procedure. Emily sat in the hospital hallway crying, staring at the estimated cost. She had nowhere near enough money. Adrian sat beside her. "How much?" She shook her head. "Don't. Emily, tell me. It's too much. I'll find a way." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You don't even have enough money for yourself." Adrian wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to say that he could pay the entire bill in seconds. But his grandfather's words echoed in his mind: "Find someone who loves you when she believes you have nothing." So Adrian quietly contacted his assistant from a hidden phone and ordered him to arrange payment anonymously. The next morning, the hospital informed Emily that the procedure had been fully covered by an anonymous donor. She was shocked. She turned to Adrian. "Did you do this?" Adrian shook his head. "I wish I could." Emily smiled through her tears. "You already did more than enough by staying." That sentence broke something inside him. He realized that Emily didn't need a billionaire. She needed a man who would stay when life became difficult. On the 30th day, Adrian's grandfather came to the neighborhood in a black luxury car. Several security officers followed him. Emily was outside the bakery when the doors opened and Adrian's grandfather stepped out. She immediately recognized the expensive suit and security detail. Then Adrian walked toward them wearing his old clothes. His grandfather looked at Emily and smiled. "I believe you deserve to know who he really is." Adrian's heart stopped. "Grandfather," the old man continued, "his real name isn't Adam. It's Adrian Blackwood. He owns Blackwood Holdings. He is worth several $billion." Emily stared at Adrian as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What?" Adrian stepped forward. "Emily, please let me explain." She backed away. "You lied to me." "I did, but not because I wanted to hurt you." "Then why?" Adrian swallowed hard. "Because I was afraid. Every woman I met wanted my money. I needed to know whether someone could love me without knowing what I had." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "So you turned me into an experiment." Adrian had no answer. That question cut deeper than any insult. "I was wrong," he finally said. "I should never have tested you. But everything I felt for you was real." Emily looked away. "You could have trusted me." "I know. And you didn't." She walked into the bakery, leaving Adrian standing in the street. For the next 3 days, Adrian returned to his mansion but couldn't enjoy anything. His luxury bedroom felt suffocating. His private chef prepared meals he barely touched. His grandfather tried to comfort him, but Adrian only said, "I found the person I was looking for, and then I destroyed her trust." Meanwhile, Emily struggled with the same emotions. She was angry because Adrian had lied, but she couldn't deny that the man she knew had never treated her badly. He had worked beside her, carried boxes, listened to her worries, and stayed with her mother at the hospital. Eventually, Emily discovered something that changed everything. She learned that the anonymous donor who paid her mother's medical bill had been Adrian. She also discovered that Adrian had secretly donated money to several struggling families in the neighborhood during his 30-day experiment. He had not announced his donations or taken credit for them. When she confronted him, Adrian admitted everything. "I didn't do it to make you love me," he said. "I did it because after meeting you, I realized how selfish my old life had become. I wanted to become someone worthy of the kindness you showed me." Emily was silent for a long time. "If I forgive you, what happens next?" Adrian smiled sadly. "Whatever you want. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. If you want to stay friends, I'll accept that. And if someday you can trust me again, I'll be here." Emily looked into his eyes. "I don't care about your billions." Adrian smiled. "I know." She continued, "But I do care about the man who sat outside a grocery store and accepted a sandwich because he was hungry." Adrian laughed softly. Emily finally smiled. "I loved that man before I knew he was rich." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "And now," Emily stepped closer, "now I need you to prove that billionaire Adrian and ordinary Adam are the same person." He nodded. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." 6 months later, Emily and Adrian opened a small bakery together. Not a giant luxury restaurant, but the cozy little bakery Emily had always dreamed about. Adrian could have built 100 stores overnight, but instead he let Emily design everything. Her mother recovered and became the bakery's unofficial manager, greeting customers every morning. Adrian still owned his billion-dollar company, but he changed the way he lived. He sold several unnecessary luxury cars, donated a large portion of his personal fortune to community programs, and created a foundation that helped struggling families start small businesses. Most importantly, he stopped hiding behind his wealth. 1 year after their first meeting, Adrian returned to the exact grocery store where Emily had given him that sandwich. He took out a small wooden box and smiled nervously. "Do you remember this place?" Emily laughed. "How could I forget?" Adrian opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. "You gave me food when you thought I had nothing. You gave me kindness when I couldn't give you anything in return. You taught me that love isn't about what someone owns. It's about who they are when nobody is watching. Emily Carter, will you marry me?" Emily's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes." Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, and she hugged him tightly. Years later, people would talk about the billionaire who gave away millions, built businesses, and changed his life. But Adrian always told the same story whenever someone asked how he found true love. He never mentioned the mansion, the cars, or the billions. He simply smiled and said, "I pretended to be homeless because I wanted to find someone who could love me without money. Instead, I found a woman who taught me that I was the one who was poor all along, not in money, but in understanding what love really meant." And from that day forward, Adrian never needed to pretend to be anyone else again, because the woman beside him had fallen in love with the man underneath the billionaire.